I go, I'm putting on. Putting on, putting on. Everywhere I go, I'm putting on. Putting on, putting on. Everywhere I go, I'm putting on. Putting on. Where you from?
Welcome to Popcorn Sports on the Popcorn Entertainment Network. I'm your host, Mike Kyle, and welcome to yet another episode of Why You Should Root for every team in the NBA for the 2018-2019 season. I, of course, am not alone. I am joined here by Delane McLurkin. You can follow him on Twitter at DelaneMCL. He covers the Chicago Bulls over at pimpin'ain'teasy.com. Delane, how you doing today? Go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Mike, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I'm so glad we're able to get this done. At the time we were recording this, the season kicked off yesterday. The Bulls play Thursday, their first game, and this is going to go Friday the following day. So I'm really excited that we're able to knock this out. My first question for you, and the question I ask all of my guests, is how did you become a fan and ultimately begin to cover the Chicago Bulls?
Definitely. So that's a great question. So I've always been a Bulls fan since I was born. So actually, when I was born, the game was actually playing in the hospital, and it was actually Jordan playing. So I was born in 1993 in November, and I was born flying the Bulls. So I always say I've been a Bulls fan since I was born, literally. So
I like that. I like that.
That's how I became a fan, and I've always watched them. I started off, I was a writer for collegiate sports, and then I'm going into my second season now covering the Bulls, and I'm extremely excited for this season. I'm so ready for the season to start for the Bulls officially tomorrow. So it's been a great time covering the Bulls.
I think that's really cool, and I feel like that's just such a cool opportunity for you. As you said, you were born a Bulls fan, and now that you're able to cover the team, especially for a network like FanSide, it's got to be a really cool experience for you.
Yes, it's definitely been a great experience. It's definitely been a good opportunity for me.
All right, and with that, let's kind of shift gears now to just the general overview of the Chicago Bulls. So they joined the NBA in 1996, and do you know why they're called the Bulls? Because in my research, I found out why, and I was stunned by the reasoning.
So I know they went through a series of name changes, but I know that they were founded in 1966. So and they actually opened up that season with the best record for an expansion team. But I would actually be enlightened to know how the name was created, though. That's great.
So they were called the Bulls because of the strength and power behind the bull, the animal, obviously, but then it also ties into the meat industry of Chicago because I guess that's a really big thing. And so that's why they ultimately decided to name themselves Chicago Bulls, which I just thought was like the wildest reasoning imaginable.
Definitely. That is a very, very extreme name. Like, that's hilarious, actually.
I know, I was like, wait, what the hell? Anyways, moving on. Their colors are red, black, and white. They have 35 playoff appearances and 6 sweet championships from Michael Jordan himself, and they play in the Central Division of Milwaukee, Cleveland, Indiana, and Detroit. They are Chicago. So, I mean, you grew up, and you said you were born in 93, so by the time you were 10 or so, and maybe really just getting into basketball, you missed the Bulls' years, which you missed Jordan Chicago's years. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I missed it, but I still remember it. Trust me.
Right.
I was watching the Heavens.
Right, and so your main experience with the Bulls is very different from the majority of older fans, and so we're gonna get into this in a little bit. But just so far, just kind of like what's been your experience as a Bulls fan on the come up right now? Throughout your years.
So, my experience as a Bulls fan coming up over the years, I mean, they're a storied franchise. I mean, of course, being from the city of Chicago, I've been to numerous Bulls games. So, they have a great culture, of course, and everyone in Chicago loves the Bulls. It's hard to find someone in Chicago that doesn't appreciate the Bulls. So, it's always an exciting time when the Bulls are playing, and everyone's always talking about them. I watched Derrick Rose growing up. I actually played basketball myself, so I actually went to Chicago public schools. So I played against a lot of the players like Parker. Watching them grow up and play in the NBA is definitely an excellent experience. The Bulls just have a great culture, and they've always garnered not only just Chicago, but they actually have fans worldwide. So that's also great as well. So that's just my brief experience. I mean, the one thing I'll say about Chicago, uh, whenever you come to play for the Bulls are always going to be a part of them. So when players leave the Bulls, we still love the players even when they play in other teams, and we always consider them a Bull for life. So
Yeah,
that's just one little nitpick.
Yeah, that's one of the really cool things. I feel like that just because, the Bulls are such a storied franchise, that's such a really cool dynamic to have where no matter what, if a player leaves, like you still embrace them because they were once part of your organization. So I kind of want to shift gears now. I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but you didn't really go fully into it. Let's just talk about last season. Okay, we'll spend some brief moments on this. They went 27-55. They missed the playoffs in the West, or they missed the playoffs in the East. I'm getting my words mixed up here. They found a gem in Lauri Markkanen, and they drafted Wendell Carter Jr. in this year's NBA draft. Last season was it was weird. It was a really, really weird season for the Bulls. They had the Jimmy Butler trade, obviously, which we can talk about for a little bit as well, because obviously that impacts the current state of the Bulls. But what can you really make of last season for me? Kind of break it down.
So last year was definitely a rebuilding year. I mean, they traded Jimmy right before the season in June. So, I mean, I would say it's a great decision made by the Bulls, seeing how things are going now in the situation. A lot of people didn't see that. A lot of Chicago fans, especially myself, were confused by the situation when the Bulls traded Jimmy because he was the one that took them to the playoffs the year before.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of Bulls fans were kind of frustrated, but I mean, of course, there were things going on behind the scenes that us Bulls fans are not able to really see. So it makes a lot of sense now, but a year ago there were a whole lot of question marks that didn't have answers. So, I mean, now looking forward, we'll stick to last season, keeping that, but Jimmy, that was a big question mark. We were confused. But we still cared, and we still loved the Bulls, and they still ended up selling out the season. So they still retained their fans, even though they got rid of Jimmy. They acquired Lauri Markkanen from the Jimmy Butler trade, and they also grabbed a gem with Zach Lavine. Although he didn't get a chance to play a lot last year, he was coming off an injury, so he was just trying to get into the full swing of things. He wasn't in his complete shape to play at his best level. So I feel like Markkanen definitely showed up last year, definitely showed his rookie year that this is why the Bulls got him, and this is why Jimmy Butler was traded. And it was surprising to a lot of Bulls fans because, like I said, they didn't really understand the trade, but now it all makes sense. And with this season coming up, it's a lot of good things to think about, but we also saw Bobby Portis come off the bench and really produce great numbers. Also, we made some changes with Nikola Mirotic last season, trading him mid-season. That was also, it wasn't confusing because him and Bobby Portis didn't really mesh, but at the same time, he was a great player for the Bulls last season. But of course, the locker room issues, the Bulls are not going to deal with any locker room issues, so they had to make a change in that aspect. But Kris Dunn also, he produced numbers. We're looking more forward to him this upcoming season. But last year, the big key that the Bulls overall, their defense was very, very lackluster. They were ranked 27th over the entire league as far as defense. So that was something most Bulls fans didn't appreciate. A lot of their losses were big losses because of the fact that they just couldn't stop anybody. Allowed a lot of open threes, a lot of made shots, and it really sucks the life out of a team when you can't stop another team from scoring. So that's just a last season recap, just based on that.
Would you say that last season was more or less so just kind of like a foundation year, trying to see who the Bulls had on their roster and kind of really determine the direction that they needed to go moving forward?
Definitely was. Last season, they just wanted to see who could play, more so. They wanted to see who they could depend on. They wanted to see who would be the rising stars because, of course, they're in a rebuilding year. Now, we kind of have a good idea of how the Bulls are looking more so.
So with that, we can actually just kind of segue this right now into this season's roster. So you have Lauri Markkanen, Wendell Carter Jr., who I mentioned earlier, Zach Lavine, Kris Dunn. You guys brought in the hometown kid, Jabari Parker, Robin Lopez, Denzel Valentine, Bobby Portis, Cameron Payne. Just kind of break down this roster for me. What do you like? What do you think some of the strengths and weaknesses are?
So there's actually a lot of things I like about the roster. So I really like the Wendell Carter Jr. draft. I feel like it was a very safe pick. I also feel that he'll be able to make an impact immediately. A lot of people are even thinking that he may start this Thursday. So I really like the pickup of Wendell Carter Jr. A lot of people do really appreciate the pickup of Jabari Parker. I do as well, personally. It does bring up a few question marks, honestly. But as a hometown hero, I mean, we like I said, if you're from Chicago, we're going to support you regardless. So, being a Chicago Bulls fan, we don't feel like we don't have a choice, but we're going to support Jabari regardless. So that's always a plus as well. And we know he can score. We know he can rebound. We just need his full effort overall. That's what we're looking for. And as far as other players on the roster, I feel like Zach Lavine is going to have a breakout year. I expect him to definitely break out, and I want to see more shots coming from Lauri Markkanen. Last year, he definitely broke out, definitely had a breakout season. But with his second year coming on with a lot of these additions, I don't want to see him get lost in the roster with all of the additions. I still want to see him perform at the level he performed last year, and I also want to see more production out of him because he already proved he can play. I feel like he needs to take more shots this year coming up. Although he's injured right now, we may not see him until November. I still wanna see good things out of Lauri Markkanen as well. But I'm really excited. I want to see how Kris Dunn will run the floor with all of the players on the team now, and I also think that Bobby Portis has some potential as well to have another breakout season. So it's a lot of exciting things going on with the roster. There's a lot of exciting players. I really think that the Bulls are really going to surprise a lot of teams and a lot of people this year.
Yeah, I think one of the things with the Bulls right now is, and as I was preparing for this show, it's like you're looking at the guys on the roster, and it's like, all right, they definitely have some players, and they have the potential to have a pretty good season compared to what they had last year. And so really you're just kind of looking at that aspect of the potential. If let's just say Zach Lavine comes back to being 90% of what he was coming off of that torn ACL, Kris Dunn really starts to click in the NBA, Jabari Parker finally maximizes his God-given talents, you're really starting to see these pieces that could really just come to life and blossom this season. And so with that,
Absolutely.
it's exactly. So it's really, I don't want to say a boom or bust year for the Bulls, but it kind of feels like that because you can definitely see it on paper. Just how does it transition onto the floor?
Yeah, so I actually sort of agree with you on that. I do feel like it's almost a boom or bust season, only because I know that Jabari Parker he's on a 2-year deal, but the second year is a team option.
Right.
So the future's not really guaranteed for him. Bobby Portis, he just chose not to do the contract extension. So knowing that his future is a question mark, Lauri's coming towards the end of his rookie contract. It's a lot of things we did extend Lavine's contract, so that's great, but like I said, it's a lot of question marks for the future for a lot of these players. So this year is going to be a big year, and it has to be a big year for the Bulls.
Is there a player that you're just really excited to watch this season?
Honestly, I'm really excited for Lavine. I feel like Lavine didn't really get a chance to show people, and I feel like people forget that he was a dunk contest champion.
Yep.
He got the whole the United States to know that he is a explosive player, and people
Electric.
forget that. And with the ACL injuries, he looks amazing. Like a lot of people, like with Derrick Rose when he came off with ACL, he kind of lost a bit of his step. But looking at Lavine after his injury, like it does not look like he's lost a step. So I'm really excited for Lavine. I'm excited for Parker only because he's playing at his hometown as well. So I feel like he'll have a great influence as well. So I'm excited about both of those. And then also I'm excited about Wendell Carter Jr. because I know he's going to blossom into a great player. But I don't know how big of an impact he's going to make this season, but I know he's definitely going to make an impact this season.
I like your take on Zach Lavine just because I feel like, because he tore his ACL and got traded it was almost in like an 8-month span pretty much. Like, people forgot about him. And yes, you did mention, he's still, he's a dunk contest champion. And like, that's the thing. He's just so electric on the floor and he just makes plays happen. And I feel like he could really be like that spark plug that the Bulls need.
Yes, definitely. Like he's easily a 20 to 23 point player
Easy.
a game.
Yep, easy.
And people just don't see it because he hasn't done it yet. And this is the season where I feel like he can do it as long as he stays healthy. And that's a huge caveat, of course. So
hang on, I'm looking up.
He plays the entire season.
Yeah, I mean, his last year in Minnesota, he averaged 19 points a game. So I mean, and even in Minnesota, he was the third guy. And so with that, I mean, now you take him as a third option, he's averaging 19 points a game. You put him at the number one option pretty much. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It's very, very difficult to have your power forward or your center be your number one option, specifically being Lauri Markkanen. And so if you have Lavine on the wing, who can obviously just do so many different things on offense, he could easily become a 23 points a game scorer.
Definitely.
So let's kind of shift it over now to the fan base, the culture, the fun surrounding the Chicago Bulls. And this is the way I kind of worded it in my show notes, is they went from Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler to the bottom of the East, and now they're trying to make it up again. And it's very much a roller coaster. It's been a roller coaster the past 5 years or so.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely been a roller coaster. I mean, Derrick Rose, of course, over the past 5 years, I mean, with all the ACL injuries, I mean, people tend to forget if he didn't have that ACL injury in the playoffs, I very much so think the Bulls probably could have came out of the East and faced the West in the championship, believe it or not. So people still have love over here in Chicago, of course, for Derrick Rose, even with them playing with the Wolves now. It's nothing but love for him. It's still nothing but love for Jimmy Butler. Butler, like I said, he dragged the Bulls by will to the playoffs before he was traded, and you see how we did without him. He even took the Timberwolves to the playoffs. People don't give him credit for that. I mean, you look at the drama he has having going on right now. I mean, like I said, we still have love for him in Chicago. We know he can play. We know he has the will. The world now sees that, of course. It's in a bad light, of course, but like I said, we still have love for him here in Chicago.
It's pretty.
That's what type of fan base we have. We always show love, basically.
It's pretty safe to say that the Bulls won that trade, then, right?
Definitely will say that.
Yeah, I mean, given the state of everything right now, if you guys are unaware, which you probably should be aware if you're watching this video, because I assume you're an NBA fan, Jimmy Butler wants out of Minnesota, and Minnesota traded for Butler last season. They gave up draft picks. They gave up great assets in Kris and Zach Lavine specifically. And so pretty much Chicago is set up beautifully right now where the Timberwolves' future is all up in the air. And as I mentioned before, the Bulls right now are really just trying to turn the ship around and get it back on course. And I think they really are in the process of doing that. And I think they are on the right track. I mean, we just went through the roster. They have a lot of good pieces in place, and now it's just a matter of just putting everything together and really progressing over the course of the next 2 to 3 years.
Yes. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. The Bulls definitely want that trade. I see the way Butler on his news now of how he is requesting trades. It's almost ridiculous because no one can give the Minnesota Timberwolves what they want now, and they're in a bubble. went back to practice and threw a big fit. So we definitely won that trade. Seeing how everything's going with Minnesota, I mean, I hope the best for them, but at the same time, I know the Bulls got the best out of that trade, so that's great.
So let's kind of talk about Bulls fans in general now. You're from one, like you are one, like you said, you're from Chicago. So and since you do write for Pimpin' Ain't Easy, you get to interact with Bulls fans both in Chicago and also across the country, around the world, wherever it may be, because they are one of the biggest fan bases in the NBA. And so what's like your takeaway with Bulls fans? Because mine is that they're very passionate and like they're one of the most knowledgeable fan bases in the NBA.
Yeah, so Bulls fans, we're definitely knowledgeable. We definitely keep up with everything as far as the entire NBA. It's rare that you see a Bulls fan not know about what's going on in the West or the East. That we keep up with both. As far as for just the fan base in general, I mean, it's a family type of thing. So basically, a lot of times when the games are going on, the whole entire family's watching. It's not just you. It's not just yourself. It's always you're watching it with someone else, and you're getting heated if the Bulls aren't playing best that they can. You're gonna watch it to the end, even if it's a bad game and they're losing. You're still gonna watch the game. I know Bulls fans. We love the Bulls commentators as well. I mean, of course, they're extremely biased, but Stacey King and Chuck, we watch them and we're on their side as far as just watching the game and being entertained. It gets very deep, and we get very biased, and of course, because we're Bulls fans, but we get very passionate about everything when it comes to the Bulls.
I love that you brought up Stacey King, because so I have family that live in Chicago, and obviously I have League Pass, but I don't watch the Bulls consistently on League Pass. And so, you'll tune in every now and then or whatever. It is what it is. But then my cousin was like, "Hey, we have this guy Stacey King. He's phenomenal." And if you guys on NBA.com, they have a Stacey King soundboard. I mean, this dude just has catchphrases out the wazoo. And on this soundboard, you can click different catchphrases, and they'll just play. It's phenomenal. I love it. I love Stacey King just because of that. I think that's so cool.
Definitely, yeah. I'll say this: if you're a Bulls fan, you love Stacey King and you love his calls. However, if you're not a Bulls fan and you're watching the other team play, you will just like, man, you'll think like Stacey, like, what is this guy on? Like,
yeah, you'll think he's crazy.
You would never hear a commentator that biased as far as Stacey King. Like, you can tell, like, oh man, this dude is running for the Bulls. Like usually when you watch nationally televised game or you watch any other team play on TV, they don't have those biased commentators, but you know Stacey King's rooting for the Bulls, but it's no other way. So
hang on, I'm looking up right.
We love that.
I'm looking up right now to see if they still have the Stacey King soundboard on NBA. They do. They still have it. I will leave a link to this down below in the description. You guys can all go ahead and check that out. It's genuinely one of my favorite things ever created. But I want to wrap it up with this. You have 30 seconds to pitch anybody why they should be a fan of the Chicago Bulls this season. The floor is yours, my man.
Definitely. So in my 30 seconds, I got to say the Bulls are going to shock some people this season, period. I'm telling you, we only have 2 nationally televised games. The one coming Thursday, I highly suggest you all watch it. We play the Sixers. Sixers are just coming off the loss with the Celtics. So I highly suggest it because you're not going to catch a lot of Bulls basketball if you live in other states, but I definitely guarantee you that we're going to shock some people. We're going to make some highlights. We're going to be on ESPN. Keep it tuned. It's going to be a great season.
Absolutely, Delane. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, that was Delane McLurkin. You can follow him on Twitter at DelaneMCL. He covers the Chicago Bulls over at pimpinainteasy.com. Delane, you got anything else to plug, my man?
Nope, that's all. I appreciate you having me, Mike.
Absolutely. Hey, if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. We're doing this for every team in the NBA, so be sure to stick around for that. And with that, we'll see you next time.